On today's video, we're out doing a little snow plowing in the middle of a snowstorm, and we're also going to talk a little bit about Michigan's mandatory deer registration. Hey there, outdoor YouTubers. Well, like I said earlier, we are out plowing a little bit of snow, and as you can see, we're in the middle of a snowstorm right now. Just trying to stay ahead of the game a little bit. I think it's supposed to snow through the night, so I don't want it to get too out of control. I don't want to wait till tomorrow when the snowstorm's over when we start plowing, because it might be kind of a little difficult to deal with by then. You know, and another thing that I wanted to mention, guys, is I did start a Patreon page, okay? And I will leave a link to that Patreon page down in the description of this video if you want to check it out, okay? And of course there'll be several different ways that you can link up with it from the main channel. I started this Patreon page to kind of post stuff that maybe doesn't fit the normal YouTube video mold. If you're interested in a little bit more content, you know, like I say, the hunting, the fishing, the laughing, the life up here in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, check out the Patreon page, you know, give it a look. And nothing's gonna change with the YouTube channel. That's all gonna be the same stuff. You know, the stuff that works on YouTube there, we're gonna continue to do that. So nothing's gonna change there. I'm not holding back any content from the YouTube channel. This really is just a place that I can put content that maybe doesn't fit that normal YouTube mold. So if you might be interested in that, check it out. So last fall was the first time that we had mandatory deer registration here in the state of Michigan. Okay, so if you harvested a deer, you had to register it with the DNR. And I believe we had 72 hours to register it, and you can register online. You don't actually have to, you know, bring it anywhere in person or whatever. So, you know, that doesn't seem too bad, right? You got 72 hours, register it online, no big deal, right? Well, you know, yes and no, right? Part of the deer registration, of course, you know, they're gathering data, you know, and there's no doubt in my mind that there are plenty of people that work for the DNR that are totally for the sportsmen, and they want to gather data. They want it to help them formulate game laws or harvest laws. You know, they just kind of want to know what they're dealing with instead of just guessing. For those of you that aren't familiar, one of the ways they used to kind of, you know, guess at the deer harvest is they would count the number of deer that they would see across the Mackinac Bridge. Okay, if you're not super familiar with Michigan, there's an Upper Peninsula where I live and hunt, and there's, you know, Lower Michigan or the Lower Peninsula, and we have a bridge that joins us, right? Upper Michigan is actually just like north of Wisconsin. Okay, we're actually connected to Wisconsin as far as a landmass, a lot more than we are to actual Lower Michigan. So I guess in the past, DNR people would kind of stand by the bridge and they would kind of make note of how many deer they would see, you know, harvested deer, like on top of cars or in the back of pickups, how many they would see cross the bridge. And that was one of their main determinations of, like, at least as far as the UP, like how many deer were harvested in the UP, which of course does not seem real scientific or accurate or anything like that. So, you know, there's no doubt in my mind, hit that one a little hard. There's no doubt in my mind that having an actual, you know, deer registration is going to give the DNR a much better, more accurate numbers as to what the deer harvest really is, okay? And that definitely should be a good thing for everybody. Along with, you know, registering your deer that you harvest, you know, there is a few other questions that they'd like you to answer. So I guess I'll kind of go over some of the complaints that I was hearing about mandatory registration. Okay, first of all, some people just don't want to give any information to the DNR. Okay, and that's fine, I get it. Some people don't trust the DNR, but okay, so we got this mandatory registration, we got to do it now. Don't really have a choice, or you're kind of in violation. All right. Some people don't like the part about only having 72 hours, and I guess I do sort of have mixed feelings about that. You know, if I were to shoot a deer opening day of rifle season out at my camp, I don't necessarily have decent phone or internet service out there. It's kind of sketchy. So I may have to, in that situation, I may have to leave the camp, drive a few miles possibly, and, you know, and hope that it's not too cumbersome to register this deer on a phone, okay? Because sometimes doing things on phones isn't nearly as cut and dried as maybe doing them on a computer. Okay, I don't know either way. I did register a deer last fall, but I did it on a PC. I didn't do it on a phone, so I don't really know what the phone part of it would be like. So, you know, that's one thing I do kind of have mixed feelings about. I do also understand that the DNR maybe can't just give you 2 weeks to register this deer, okay? 2 weeks down the road, the deer's processed, it's in your freezer. You know, I can see a lot of people kind of sitting around and saying like, wow, deer's in the freezer, I'm not really gonna bother with it right now. You know, it's more maybe that driving force where, hey, this deer is hanging in the garage. You know, I got it tagged for November 15th. Somebody shows up and I don't have this registered and it's November 20th, I could get in a little bit of trouble. Maybe I better register it. Okay, so I can see a little incentive there. I can see a little non-incentive. You know, if you got a couple weeks, deer's in the freezer, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, maybe you're not registering it. Okay, so I can kind of see both sides of that. And, you know, the other thing that I heard a few complaints about was, you know, they kind of want a location. They want a location of where you harvested this deer. All right, well, you know, I can see if you're trying to do something as far as the DNR, if you're trying to really do something positive with this data, I can kind of see where they kind of got to know sort of where this deer was shot, okay? The UP, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where I hunt, the deer populations are extremely diverse from the northern end to the southern end, okay? Very diverse. The northern, you know, half of the UP, you get a lot of lake effect snow, a lot of deep snow in the winter. Oftentimes deer migrate out of these areas. They really can't survive winters in some of the areas of the northern half of the UP. Southern half, much less snow, much higher deer populations. So if you're trying to use this data for the DNR and you're trying to use this data to formulate some harvest laws, you probably do kind of got to know, you know, where these deer are being shot, at least certainly in the UP. And I don't doubt that downstate Michigan's kind of the same thing. I'm sure they have their denser areas that could handle a little bit heavier harvest, and then they have their, you know, maybe lighter areas of deer populations that maybe, you know, they don't want to have, you know, more aggressive harvesting there. So, you know, I can kind of see where they sort of got to know where you got this deer. Now, they don't ask you to pinpoint it exactly. They kind of give you a map. You just kind of go around with this cursor and kind of click, you know, in the proximity of where you got this deer. So I don't feel like it's, you know, too terribly intrusive. They're not really asking for the exact, you know, 40 or the exact coordinates of where you shot this deer. So, you know, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world, but I do know a lot of people want nothing to do with it. They want, you know, they want nothing to do with the DNR, knowing where they hunt, what they're getting, what they're up to, you know, and I kind of get that. I do understand some people really want to keep their information to themselves. Okay, so so that's kind of the complaints that I was hearing. But you know, the positive side is hopefully they'll use this information, you know, to help the hunters, right? To help formulate harvest laws. Instead of kind of just guessing, actually have some good information and make some good decisions on the harvest laws going forward. So I guess that's kind of my take. I understand some of the complaints. You know, I hope it doesn't become a tool to pass tickets out. You know, I guess that's maybe my one concern. I hope it doesn't become a tool to pass tickets out. I hope, you know, people in good faith, you know, register the deer, and hopefully there's, you know, good use made out of that information. And I hope it doesn't become a, oh, gotcha, you didn't register it, gotcha. Or, you know, like when you're registering it, they do ask you like what deer management unit you were hunting in, and then they ask you to kind of pinpoint, you know, sort of where you were hunting or where you harvested it. You know, if you're kind of on the edge of a DMU, would you say one DMU, but then when you kind of click it on the map, maybe you're in another one? You know, I would hate to think those sort of things would be like, oh, you showed us on the map that you harvested it here, but then you said you hunted in this DM. You know, I hope they wouldn't like try to corner people on that, like, hey, you're falsifying this information or whatever, you know. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. But hey, for you guys that hunt in other states, what do you have, you know, mandatory deer registrations in the state that you hunt in? You know, and how does it work, and what do you think about it? I'd appreciate some comments below. You know, how do you think it's worked? Has your DNR, do you feel your DNR has used that information wisely, or do you think they're kind of, you know, maybe using it for one of those gotcha moments, right? Where, oh, yeah, we use some of the information that from your online registration, and you know, we kind of cornered you on this or that or the other thing. So, you know, I'd be curious to hear about other states. You know, I know a little bit about Wisconsin, what they do, you know, and they've had mandatory deer registration for years, and I kind of know how it works there. But you know, some of you guys in Wisconsin, you know, let me know, what do you think of it? You know, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. So anyways, yeah, I'd like to hear from some of you guys that hunt in other states, and what you think about deer registration and how you think it's been working. Eat shark. Very good. So guys, if you're interested in more videos about getting out and enjoying the great outdoors of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, be sure to check out the entire channel. And if you enjoy what you see, please consider liking and subscribing. And for bonus content, be sure to check out our Patreon page. A link to this page can be found in the description of this video. And also guys, remember to hunt, fish, laugh, repeat. Thanks for watching, and God bless.